When most people drop out of school, they usually end up creating some giant tech company or become a famous artist.
When you hear about slavery for 400 years, for 400 years, that sounds like a choice.
They don't normally end up causing a massive civil war in their country that kills tens of millions of people, but Hong Xiuquan is an exception.
Bruh. Look at this dude.
Hong was born in 1814 to a poor farming family, but he was a massive nerd and grew up dreaming of passing the massive battery of tests to become a civil servant in China. Now you may be thinking, I'm pretty smart. I've taken some hard tests before. You just gotta study more than you normally would. Well, listen up, dummies. To pass these things, you basically had to know everything about everything, ranging from military strategy to tax laws, and you had to memorize the Confucian classics, which are basically just several big, thick philosophy textbooks. This thing was like the test to end all tests and could take anywhere from 1 to 3 days to complete. Now, Hong had been studying since he was 5 years old, and by the time he was 11, he could recite all the Confucian classics by memory. So, when I was 11, I was memorizing all the Pokemon up to Gen 4, and this guy had already memorized multiple entire books. So, Hong passed the lowest level exam, but he failed the next level exam multiple times, and after the third time he was so upset about failing that he was delirious for days and kept having strange visions. In one of Hong's visions, he went up to heaven and met his spiritual father, who told him that the people of China were actually worshipping demons, and that he needed to purge the demons from heaven. Later, Hong began to believe that he was the literal son of God and brother of Jesus, now outfitted with 2 massive swords.
This is about what you saw on the train. It's folded, tempered, and it does its job.
Hong began his quest of destroying all the Confucian and Buddhist texts and statues in his house.
The sacred Jedi texts!
And he started recruiting a bunch of followers to help destroy everyone else's pagan stuff. He also began to study the Bible with an American Southern Baptist missionary and decided he didn't like that version, so he wrote his own where he took out all the parts he didn't like, Thomas Jefferson style. He especially objected to Genesis 38:16 through 26, which made him really popular with the dads. If you really want to read this, pause the video. Hong's ideas were a combination of communal utopianism and Christianity, and by 1850 he had thousands of followers. Much like the US government during the Cold War, the Chinese government saw this growing movement as a threat and sent the military to kill them all, and by some miracle on ice, Hong's followers held off the superior government forces and ended up actually beheading their army's commander. After the massive ego boost, Hong declared himself leader of the Heavenly Kingdom of Transcendent Peace, and just like all heavenly kingdoms of transcendent peace,
I say the whole world must learn of our peaceful ways. By force.
being the leader of the Heavenly Kingdom and brother of Jesus has certain perks, namely having a massive harem, and so Hong withdrew from actively running the kingdom and spent his days preying on women and just regularly praying, while his advisors waged a massive war with the rest of China. Hong's good time had to come to an end eventually, and that came in the form of eating weeds he collected from his palace grounds while being besieged by the Chinese government. He was sick for 20 days before dying. After his kingdom fell, his body was dug up, beheaded, cremated, and then his ashes were blasted out of a cannon to ensure that his remains would have no resting place as his eternal punishment. By the end of Mr. Hong's wild ride, it's estimated that 20 to 30 million people have died, and if that doesn't motivate you to stay in school, I don't know what will.